Emma finds out she was used as bait to reach Russo while he was vulnerable. Emma couldn't breathe. The words echoed in her head long after the room had fallen silent. She was the only way to get to you. Not an asset, not collateral. She was the way, a name on a list, a variable in a brutal calculation she hadn't known she was part of. Her gaze locked on the man across the room. Russo. His shirt was stained with someone else's blood, the grip on his gun still tight. But his eyes, usually unreadable, now flinched with something that looked too close to guilt. "You knew?" she whispered, voice cracking under the weight of betrayal. Russo didn't answer. That was answer enough. Emma stepped back, hands shaking, vision swimming. The taste of metal clung to the back of her throat. Used, played like a pawn, and not even for her own life, for his. Every kind word, every protective gesture. It all rewound in her mind like a lie caught on replay. Behind her, the door stayed locked. Outside, they'd still be looking for her. But in here, with him, was she any safer? Her knees buckled. Russo moved fast, but not fast enough to stop her from falling apart. Emma reacts emotionally, panic, anger, disbelief. Russo calms her, asserts his protection, and gives orders. He reminds her of the danger and gently manipulates her to stay. "Don't touch me." Her voice was raw, broken. Russo crouched beside her anyway, steady hands on her shoulders. "Emma, breathe." She shoved at him, weakly. "You used me." "No," he said firmly, eyes narrowing. "They used you." "I didn't know. Not until it was too late." "You let it happen," she snapped, wiping her face with the back of her sleeve. "You stood there and let them put a target on me." Russo exhaled through his nose, jaw tightening. "You think I'd let anyone hurt you and walk away from it? You think I don't have bodies to answer for already?" His voice dropped low, calm like a blade she couldn't see coming. "I don't apologize for surviving. But I'll make damn sure you do." Emma blinked, stunned silent. The fury in her chest flickered with something colder. Fear, maybe. Or something worse. Need. "You're not safe out there. Not without me," he continued, his tone shifting to something softer, calculated. "They don't care what happens to you." "I do." He stood, offered her his hand. When she didn't take it, he gave her a moment, then turned away and started issuing orders into his earpiece. "Double the security downstairs. No one comes near this room without my clearance. Prep the safe house." "We move at first light." Emma sat there, stunned and shivering as the world around her realigned. Russo at its center, calm amid the chaos he refused to explain. The room felt colder now, but somehow safer too. He turned back to her, voice gentler this time. "You stay with me, Emma. It's the only way this ends with you still breathing." She didn't nod, but she didn't argue either. Emma tends to Russo's wound regularly. Their interactions grow more intimate but remain cautious. The threat from Costa looms. Emma learns about security. The sharp sting of antiseptic was a reminder of how close she'd come to losing control. Both of the wounds she cleaned on Russo's side and the fragile hold on her own nerves. She dipped the cloth in saline, careful as Russo sat stiffly on the worn leather chair, eyes fixed on a cracked window where shadows played. "You're too tense," she said, her voice quieter than usual. Russo's jaw twitched. "Tension keeps me alive." Emma bit back a retort. Instead, she pressed the cloth gently against the ragged cut near his ribs, wincing when he flinched. "You need rest," she said. "And you need to keep your head clear. Danger's not going away just because I'm patched up." Their glances met, an unspoken truce, for now. Over the next days, the routine settled between them. Emma dressing Russo's wound, Russo barking orders into his phone or pacing the sprawling mansion. Guards rotated shifts, cameras lined every hall, motion sensors hummed beneath the floor. Emma absorbed the details, the depth of their fortress becoming painfully clear. This wasn't just a hideout. It was a cage with razor wire. "Costa's coming," Marco said one evening, joining them quietly in the dim kitchen. His voice was low but steady. "He thinks Russo's weak." "We'll see." Emma studied Marco's face, trying to read the lines etched by years under Russo's thumb. The Mafia world was colder, deadlier than she'd imagined. Yet beneath it all, there was something else, a fragile thread connecting her and Russo. In the quiet moments between stitched wounds and whispered warnings, they shared a wary understanding, both prisoners and protectors, bound by danger and something more complicated. The calm before the storm. Russo leaves for negotiations. Emma watches the mansion lockdown. Marco shares insight into Mafia power. Tension peaks. Russo returns victorious but drained. The mansion had been locked down for hours. Emma sat by the window, fingers curled around a cup of lukewarm coffee, eyes darting across the sprawling estate. Every shadow seemed heavier, every noise sharper. Russo's absence was a weight she hadn't expected. The man who never stopped moving, commanding, calculating, now gone into the lion's den. Marco leaned against the doorway, his expression unreadable. "Costa's no joke," he said, voice low. "You see Russo now? He's the boss." But that didn't come easy. Costa's been circling, waiting for a crack. Emma nodded, heart thudding. "What happens if Russo loses?" Marco shrugged, a shadow crossing his face. "Then all this," he gestured to the mansion and its armed guards, "crumbles. And you don't want to be here when that happens." The tension coiled tighter as night deepened. Emma's gaze never left the dark driveway. Every car was a threat, every distant sound a warning. Suddenly, headlights cut through the black. Russo's car rolled through the gates, silent but for the crunch of gravel. He stepped out, face pale but eyes sharp. His coat was dusted with rain, his movements slower. Tired. Emma stood, her breath catching as he limped toward her. The power had shifted back into the room, but the cost was written in the lines of his face. "Costa's bluff," he said softly, voice rough. "We hold? But it's just the beginning." She reached out, touching the side of his face gently. For a moment, the storm outside seemed to fade, leaving only the fragile pulse between them. Uneasy, uncertain, but undeniable. The room was thick with the lingering tension of the negotiation, but it had shifted, softened, almost fragile. Emma sat beside Russo on the worn leather couch, her fingers trembling slightly as she handed him the last signed document. His usual hard gaze softened when it met hers, the relentless edge replaced with something quietly tender. "We did it," he murmured, voice low and rough. The words sounded distant, as if he was more focused on her than the victory. Emma's breath hitched. The space between them felt charged, magnetic, pulling tighter with every heartbeat. She could feel the warmth radiating from him, the faint scent of his cologne, something smoky and familiar that made her chest tighten unexpectedly. She tried to pull away, a flicker of doubt rising. This wasn't what she had planned. Not tonight. Not with him. But Russo's hand found hers, steady and sure, fingers curling protectively around hers. The touch was gentle, yet it shattered the barriers she'd built. The rough edges of the day dissolved into the quiet intimacy of this moment. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said softly. the raw honesty in his voice unraveling her resolve. Her eyes searched his, vulnerability flashing between them like a silent plea. She wanted to resist, to hold on to control, but the pull was too strong, too undeniable. Slowly, hesitantly, she leaned closer. Their breaths mingled, the space between narrowing until finally their lips met. It was tentative at first, a question, an exploration. Then the kiss deepened, burning away doubts and fears. Emma's heart hammered in her chest, every nerve alive with the shock of surrender. For a moment, time stood still. No contracts, no negotiations, just the raw, electric connection of two souls bearing themselves in the dark. When they finally parted, Rousseau rested his forehead against hers, eyes closed, his breath warm against her skin. Emma's own breath was ragged, the walls she'd built crumbling beneath the weight of this unexpected, perfect vulnerability. Sunlight filtered weakly through the blinds, casting soft lines across the rumpled sheets. Emma stirred, eyelids heavy, heart pounding with the rush of the night before. She blinked open her eyes, disoriented, and realized she was still in Rousseau's bed. Panic flickered. What had she done? The tension she'd fought so hard to keep at bay now flooded every inch of her mind. The man she barely understood was right here, inches away, still watching her with an expression that balanced tenderness and something deeper, honesty. Morning. Rousseau's voice was quiet, cautious, as if unsure how she'd react. Emma swallowed hard, searching for words that wouldn't come. The night felt like a fragile thread between desire and danger, and she wasn't sure where it would lead. Her hands trembled, tracing the edge of the sheet as memories of the kiss, the softness, the fire, played back relentlessly. "Rousseau, what is this?" she finally whispered, voice cracking with uncertainty. "Who are you to me?" He sighed, running a hand through his hair, the vulnerability in his eyes unsettling her. "I'm not perfect, Emma. I've got my scars, my secrets, but I'm here. Not just as a negotiator, not just as someone you work with." Emma's chest tightened. The reality was sinking in. This wasn't just a fleeting moment. There was history, pain, and complexity behind those eyes. She wanted to retreat, to push him away, but the ache of wanting to understand him pulled her closer instead. This morning was more than regret. It was the beginning of something she hadn't expected, a fracture in the walls she'd built around her heart. Rousseau led Emma through the dimly lit corridors of the mansion, his footsteps steady but quiet. The air grew heavier as they approached a heavy oak door, engraved with years of history and silence. He pushed it open and stepped inside, the room steeped in shadows, lined with bookshelves and relics of a life far more complicated than she had imagined. On the desk lay a framed photo, worn at the edges, black and white. Rousseau picked it up gently and handed it to her. It was a picture of a younger Rousseau, no more than 10, standing between his parents. They smiled, their faces warm and full of life. "These were my parents," Rousseau said, voice low, almost reverent, "before everything changed." Emma's fingers trembled as she traced the outlines of their faces. What happened? He sank into a leather chair, eyes darkening with memories. They were killed in a hit. It wasn't random. It was personal. Business gone wrong. I was left with nothing but questions and a promise I made to myself. He looked up, locking eyes with her. That night shaped who I became, cold, calculating, protective. I built walls to keep the world out and to keep me safe, but also to make sure no one could ever hurt me the way they hurt my family. Emma felt a rush of empathy. The man she'd seen as distant and ruthless was a product of pain and loss. This was the foundation of everything he was: his guarded nature, his fierce loyalty, even his moments of unexpected tenderness. "I never told anyone. Not like this," he admitted quietly. "But you needed to know, because from here, it's your choice. You can walk away or you can stay and understand the man behind the mask." Emma's breath hitched. The weight of his story settled over her like a quiet storm, making the path ahead unclear but urgent. The room felt smaller now, the silence between them charged with unspoken decisions. She was no longer just an observer. The game had changed, and so had the stakes. Emma pulled on her coat, the cold night air hitting her like a shock as she stepped out of the mansion. The quiet streets felt foreign, almost hostile, as if the world she had known had shifted beneath her feet. She walked quickly, desperate to put distance between herself and the tangled emotions waiting behind those walls. Her apartment was a refuge, or so she hoped, but the familiar comfort she longed for was absent. The furniture, the quiet hum of the city outside, even the scent of her space felt off, hollow. The night's revelations clung to her skin, a weight she couldn't shake. As she unpacked her thoughts, the doorbell rang. Marco, Russo's longtime confidant, stood in the hallway, holding a sealed envelope. "This came for you," he said, voice neutral, but eyes unreadable. Emma took the letter, fingers brushing over Russo's familiar scrawl. She hesitated before breaking the seal, the paper trembling slightly in her hands. His words spilled out like a confession, raw, honest, and full of hope. He spoke of his past, the night they shared, and the future he wanted with her. Each sentence pulled her deeper into a storm of doubt and longing. She sat on the edge of her bed, the letter crumpled in her hands, heart racing with the impossible choice before her. The night wasn't just a memory anymore. It was a turning point. And now, Emma had to decide: hold on to the life she knew, or step into the unknown with Russo. Emma unfolded Russo's letter with trembling hands, the paper fragile under her fingertips like the fragile thread between them. His handwriting was uneven, raw, vulnerable, more honest than she had ever heard him be. "Emma, I don't know how to say this without sounding like the man I fought so hard to bury. The truth is, I'm scared. Scared of losing you, scared of what opening up means after everything I've been through. But I can't keep pretending I'm untouchable when you've already broken through all my defenses. Last night wasn't a mistake. It was the first time I felt something real in a long time. I know I'm complicated, maybe even too much, but I want you to know that with you, I'm willing to try. You don't owe me anything. You can walk away and I'll respect that. But if you stay, I promise to meet you where you are, not with walls, but with honesty. Whatever you decide, know that you've changed me. Russo." Emma's breath caught in her throat. The man she thought she knew was revealing cracks in the armor she'd feared. The letter felt like a lifeline, but also a challenge. Logic screamed for safety. Return to the routine, the predictable calm of her old life. But her heart throbbed with something fierce, something uncharted. She stared out her window at the city lights, the world full of possibilities and risks. The choice was hers: retreat into the familiar or leap into the uncertain, with Russo's raw truth lighting the way. Her fingers curled into a fist, determination settling like fire in her veins. This wasn't just about desire. It was about reclaiming herself, embracing the chaos and the tenderness, the pain and the hope. Emma folded the letter carefully, the decision clear in her mind. She was ready to step into the unknown. Emma's fingers hovered over the phone before she finally dialed. The line clicked, and then his voice, low and cautious, filled the silence. "Emma." "Russo," she said, her voice steady, stronger than she felt. They spoke without hesitation. No games, no pretenses. Emma laid out her boundaries, her fears, and what she needed to feel safe. Russo listened, every word folding into a promise. "I won't ask you to give up who you are," he said. "Only that we face this together." Her heart warmed at the sincerity, but she held firm. "If we do this, it's on my terms too. Respect, honesty, no secrets. I can live with that." Outside, the rumble of an engine grew louder. The black SUV they had left behind pulled up under the streetlight, its dark windows reflecting the night. Emma took a deep breath, her nerves electric, but her resolve unwavering. "I'm ready." Russo's voice softened, relief threading through his words. "I'll be waiting." She ended the call and stepped out into the cool night air, the SUV door opening for her like an invitation. As the vehicle rolled forward, Emma watched the city blur past, the lines between her old world and this new path merging. This was no longer about fear or control. It was about trust, passion, and the promise of something real. She was choosing herself, choosing him, choosing what could be. And for the first time, the future felt hers to claim. Emma stepped out of her apartment, the door closing softly behind her without a backward glance. The familiar weight of doubt and fear that once clung to her like a second skin had lifted, replaced by something lighter, something braver. The city hummed around her, but she moved through it with a new rhythm, one shaped by choice, not circumstance. Each step was a quiet declaration. The past was no longer a chain holding her down. It was a closed chapter. Her breath caught in the crisp morning air, but it didn't shake her. The uncertainty of the road ahead no longer felt like a threat. It was an invitation. She wasn't running away. She was stepping forward into the unknown, into the messy, beautiful chaos of life with Russo. Behind her, the door clicked shut, final, certain. Ahead, the horizon stretched wide, full of possibility. Emma smiled softly. This was her moment, her new beginning. Want more stories like this? Follow along for the next chapter of Emma and Salvatore's dark and dangerous love story. Or tell us, should she have walked away?